Ah, it appears we are live. I believe.
Hey, howdy. It appears we are live, but it still says waiting for us. Got on my end.
Try refreshing the page. Refresh it.
That's
Do it now. Do it. Do it now.
I refreshed. Raid Shadow Legends.
God damn it. They refuse to pay
There
me.
we go.
Alright, so we're live? Okay,
Damn,
good.
Very pixely. Oh,
You
well,
are
that's on my end.
yeah, it's actually on my end too a little bit, but I think it helps that, you know, you're smaller on the overall view, so it'll be fine. Well, I'm sure everyone will be deeply harmed and tearful that they cannot see your sexual face. Sensual face, I said sexual. Either way, it still works.
Husband gun is high today.
I am always high. I'm high in life. To be fair, life spreads some toxic ass fumes, so if you don't get at least a little high off all that shit, what are you doing?
I mean, that's fair.
Alright, so Aura Sunlight was first. Well, you were technically first, but hey, Aura Sunlight, welcome to the stream. Dragonis, for the Emperor! For the Emperor! Nathan with the super chat, of course, yeah, I responded to that. Nathan! Speak to me, damn it! Stop sending me money! Say words. Please. Moraine, welcome to the podcast. Welcome. Donating before the stream even starts. Nathan want Asmo to open with thank you, because it is a thank you. Or Sunlight just super chatted as well. Cookie, well, cookie to you too.
At least it's
Thank you.
a word.
Or Sunlight, thank you. What the fuck? Telemarketers know I'm
Did you hear me,
streaming.
Husband gun?
I can hear you. Wow, what's up?
I said at least it was a word.
At least it was a word. It was a word! That's more than I get from Nathan these days. Not money-wise, but certainly vocabulary. Draven, welcome to the podcast, man. Hello, brothers in the chapter. Hello, Draven. As we're gonna shut up and take Nathan's money. Never! I will never shut up. His words are far more valuable than his money. Alright, so I think when we get started with everything, then we've done our initial greetings. We'll welcome people as they hop into the podcast. It's been a while, a good while since we last did a podcast.
Yes, and I will say that I am so happy. I really enjoy these. So fun, and we did talk in private, and these have been helping behind the scenes. So I'm really super excited to be doing this today.
Me too. We just had someone join the podcast, Dane Newell Bauer. I believe that's how it's said. I apologize if that's not how to pronounce your name. Good morning, everyone. Is anyone else hyped for Total War Warhammer 3? Well, that is a brilliant way to segue into our first topic today. Yes, that was just announced. Pretty conveniently timed for the stream. Total War Warhammer 3 is coming. It's on the way. And I am excited for that. The one downside is I just bought all of the DLC for sorry, I almost said StarCraft 2. I just finished buying all the DLC for Total War Warhammer 2. I didn't even have time to try all of it before it's like, no, he bought all of it. Okay, now, Asmogon bought all of it. Now, launch the announcement. Launch!
It's
like, no!
I have mixed feelings towards it.
Mixed. Alright.
Yes. I'm excited because it is Total War Warhammer.
Alright.
And I think they did really good with Three Kingdoms. But overall, the general consensus is the Total War series, it has been kind of like on a downward curve for a while. So maybe this will be something to bring it back up. I don't know.
Most of the downward, to be fair though, most of the downward slant, I think a lot of people were starting to see, came mostly from those like miniature Total War games they were doing, like Total War. What was it? Total War. Can't remember it now. Arch did a video on it. Damn.
Troy.
Yes, that was like,
Okay.
weren't they trying to do like a series of like smaller or like what were they exactly trying to do with Total War Troy? And I think they were planning to do it with other games.
I don't know.
I'd have to pull up the video.
I didn't give it any attention whatsoever because I wasn't interested in it.
Hey, Ace1918, welcome to the podcast, man. What's up?
I mean, if I'm not interested in something, it will get very little attention. So it was something that didn't interest me from the get go. So I was like, yeah, whatever. It's something. It's over there. It doesn't bother me one way or the other.
Yeah, I didn't even bother checking it out. It wasn't just because of Arch, but other people I knew who were way bigger fans of the Total War franchise than me. You know, I got my start with the Total War franchise with Samurai 2. No, Samurai Shogun. Crap, I still have it in my library.
Mine was Warhammer 1. So.
Really, that was your first Total War?
Mm-hmm.
Did you get Rome 2?
The only Total War games I played are Warhammer 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, me, played Shogun 2. I think it's Shogun 2. Then I played Total War Rome 2. And there's one other one I played before. I'm trying to remember what it was now. It was one of the older ones that I bought later. So I think it was Total War Medieval something. Oh, I have played quite a bit of the. I say quite a bit. Obviously, there's a plethora of Total War games that I haven't played. So out of the whole set, though, I've played some of the more popular ones, and I've enjoyed them quite a bit. So thank you, Nathan, for the super chat. Thank you for your continued generosity. Please speak something, damn it. Sorry.
So for me, I've actually stepped away from Warhammer 2. I know we've talked about this in private. For some reason, I can't get Radius Mod to work, and that was I was doing it for YouTube, and now I have none of my saves, so that has kind of pissed me off. So yeah, I decided to step away from it for a little while.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, we just got a super chat. Hey, thank you, Arctic. Thank you. If there's something strange in your neighborhood, who you gonna call? Ghost Division. Do you know what he's talking about? Or a Sunlight with a super chat.
Oh,
thank you.
I do know what he's talking about because Sabaton did a song on it. It's a Panzer Division.
Okay. Hold on, let me read some of Ace's stuff here. It just popped in. Not much. Saw the new trailer for Warhammer 3. Yeah, I did too. What are your thoughts on it? Well, we're gonna getting into that now. My first Total War was Empire, but then I went back to Rome and Medieval 2. Medieval 2 is the one I think I got later. Yeah, with my experience with the Total War franchise, out of the ones I've played, I've loved pretty much all of them. The only one the one I would say at the bottom of the ones I played, and not because it was actually bad, but because I just didn't like it as much as the others, would probably be Rome 2. Just not my thing. Wasn't as big of a fan of that one.
I was hesitant about Three Kingdoms, but now one of my favorite historical periods is the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. That period in China is actually, for me, it's really cool. But so I've always liked the Dynasty Warriors games, and before them the Tessin games, which they basically retell the same story. And so Three Kingdoms, Total War Three Kingdoms was just retelling the same thing. So I was like, you know what, I like Total War, I like that civilization stuff, I like this period of China's history. So you know what, let's see if they do it justice. And I think they really did. So I like the play style, and yeah, I'm already predisposed to liking it because I like that era in China. So
I don't know much about the historical side of it, but
don't trust the games.
Don't trust. I don't genuinely. Obviously, just rule of thumb for anybody: don't trust games to be your teachers of history. Books and actual historians are good to go off of. Video games, you always take liberties, of course. They can't perfectly replicate history and still make it fun. That being said, I haven't played Three Kingdoms, but after what you just said, I might try it out. I don't know anything about the historical period, but it could just be fun to play it out and just get the vibe of it from the story that's being told through the Total War aspect.
Ludus does know of the good boy Lubu. I wouldn't really call him a good boy, but yes, Ludus does know of him.
Yeah, Nathan spoke into Super Chat. Goddamn. Does Ludus know of the good boy Lubu? I know, that's the insulting part. God damn it. Speak to me, man. Real quick, question: can the High Marshal kick out a few Black Templars if they are showing common sense? Because I am making a renegade Black Templars who are experiencing common sense. Technically, any chapter master or equivalent can kick out members, but they can't do it through I either kill them, which in the Black Templars case that would be more the case. Would probably be they'd probably just kill them if they believed it was chaos corruption, but if it was simply because of some kind of cultural upheaval, they would probably, in that case, in the Black Templars, there would be a way to do it through creating a sub-chapter, creating a successor chapter, giving it a supposed role, and just kind of doing what Rogel Dorn did with the Black Templars, and throwing all the problem children of, which, imagine that, the problem children of the Black Templars, what would that be like? Throw them into a successor chapter, and then drop them off somewhere, and they could formulate their own group. That's the only two scenarios I see someone leaving the chapter.
I was going to say, if you are interested, I would check out the record of the Three Kingdoms, which is the more historical account of that period. Because there's two things. There's the record of the Three Kingdoms, and then there's the romance. And the romance is the one where, you have generals who are 50 foot tall shooting lightning out of their ass. But the record is the more historically accurate representation of it. And it's really, really cool.
Real quick, welcome to Murderous Kitten and Jorge and Fincarn. Good to see you guys. I don't see Fincarn too often, so it's good to catch you one of these times. So welcome to the podcast. We're currently talking about Total War Warhammer 3 announcement. We're kind of just going over a little bit of our backdrop with the franchise. I guess now we should probably actually talk about the announcement. And what are you looking forward to the game itself? What are your thoughts on your anticipation?
Cautiously optimistic. Again, I like Warhammer, but at the same time, with a lot of what...
Oh, thank you for the super chat, Ace. Thank you very much, Ace. Thank you. If you guys want turn-based strategy, I'd recommend Steel Panther MBT for more modern stuff. It is insanely detailed and historically accurate. Oh, thank you for the recommendation. I'll check it out. Probably won't be able to immediately after the stream today. I got to deal with the doggy, but
but I will say that I'm cautiously optimistic because I do like Warhammer and I do like the Total War games. But at the same time, with everyone saying, that Creative Assembly has been on a downward curve, it does bring in that kind of cautious optimism if it does get worse. And one of the biggest complaints I've heard is siege battles, especially through Arching Kids. And Jorge just said this. He said the thing with Three Kingdoms is that the gameplay is no bueno compared to Shogun and Medieval. That has really no consequence to me because I haven't played Shogun and Medieval, so I can't compare it.
Shogun was great. I played Shogun 2, to be frank. I didn't play the first Shogun, but Shogun 2 was my entry to the Total War franchise. Freaking loved it. I haven't played it forever, which actually kind of makes me want to right now. But that definitely had pretty engaging combat. It I keep saying probably. It had what I would say, out of the ones I played, obviously I haven't played every single Total War game, but out of the ones I played, it had some of my favorite gameplay systems in place for the Total War franchise. Obviously, it's not too much of a departure from what we see in, let's say, Total War Warhammer or Warhammer 2, and probably what we're going to see in Warhammer 3, which kind of I'll use as a segue in my thoughts into Warhammer 3 and my expectations. My personal expectations is, like you, I'm cautiously optimistic, but at the same time, with the level of optimism I have with the whole gaming industry right now is pretty low. Now you could say that's because of some recent events, with Cyberpunk, for example, and how that shitstorm went down. And I had no doubts in my mind that Cyberpunk was at least going to be enjoyable, which it was for us on PC. But hear what happened with the console launch, and hear how they claimed they had no clue what was going on there. Generally speaking, that kind of, for me, reflects the problems with the whole game industry, and I think not necessarily that Creative Assembly is going to do the same thing where they're going to hype the shit out of this and then it's going to come out and be total garbage. I expect that this will be hyped. certainly within the community that plays it. People are going to be look forward to it, and I expect that when it releases, it's going to have problems. It's going to have probably bugs, and they're going to patch those out eventually. But as for like, do I think it's going to be better or the best Total War ever? And no, I don't. I don't think that. I think it will be good. I'm hoping like hell. It's at the very least on par with its predecessor in the series so far, with Total War Warhammer 2. At the very least, I don't care if they just copy and paste some of the systems in, because honestly, that's what they do between franchises anyway. But I'm not expecting any kind of big evolutions with Total War Warhammer 3. I mean, that's just me. My cautious optimism isn't the optimism of, I think they're gonna. It's possible they're gonna. I don't really think they're gonna do any kind of major innovations or anything. They're not gonna redo any major systems. They're gonna eventually copy and paste some systems from Warhammer 2, slap a new price tag on it, and release it. Now, hopefully, I'm wrong. Hopefully, they're going to use this opportunity of Warhammer 3 to try out some new stuff. Maybe go a little bit more crazy with some of the fantastical elements that they can't with their historical entries. They've had a lot of liberty to do that with Warhammer 1 and 2. I'm just curious to see what they'll do with 3. I'm eager, but I'm cautiously. I guess optimistic would be a wrong way to put it, because I'm not that optimistic. I'm more
curious.
I'm curious. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not gonna give myself any kind of expectations. I'm gonna give myself like a playing field of it, at the very least. I just want it to be on par with its predecessor. That's my like expectation.
And I'm going to repeat this because I don't think it was either understood or or taken how I meant it. I haven't played any games except for Total War Warhammer 1, Warhammer 2, or Three Kingdoms. That's it. I got started through Warhammer 1. Any of the predecessors, any of that, you can tell me, they were so much better in Medieval, they were better in Shogun. It means dick all to me because I haven't played it, so I don't know.
So that about covers my... Oh, hold on. Jorge says, to me, CA, Creative Assembly, needs to add some features that they removed from the older games. Each game seems to have less and less features than the last. In certain ways, I definitely agree. And that again kind of speaks back to the consistent issue with the gaming industry as a whole right now is franchises that are supposed to be, this is the newest entry in this franchise, but they have whole systems. They either... The gaming industry as a whole, and this includes Creative Assembly, this includes every major company so far, they, instead of taking a new entry into a franchise as an opportunity to innovate, they literally just use it as a chance to copy paste what they did before, maybe do a graphical they might waste some money on hiring people to increase the graphics, and then they slap a new price tag on it and release it. I'm hoping that's not what Creative Assembly does with this. I hope they actually take this opportunity to go, okay, hey, let's look at what worked in previous entries, not just in this franchise of Warhammer, of our Warhammer games, but in all of our Total War games, and let's take some of those elements and put them in Warhammer 3. Make it that much more engaging for the player, and again, not just give us a graphics facelift, give us an actual, core upgrade from before. The problem is, I don't expect them to do that. Do they need to do that? Should they do it? Yes. Are they going to? That's what I'm saying is I don't think they're going to. I at this point, if I'm proven wrong, I'll be happy. Trust me, I could not be more happy to be wrong if this comes out and there are brand new or old systems that they've just brought back, given them a facelift, and really helped the gameplay and helped the experience for the player really blow up and feel more engaging. Are they going to do that? I don't think so. I honestly, you could just say the gaming industry has just disappointed me so much that at this point I'm so negative about it, and I would love to be wrong. I don't think I will be, but I would love to be.
I will say this as a little bit of a little bone to chew on for thought. As far as implementing new systems, they've done that in Warhammer 2, but this is going to be very specific. When they release New Skaven, because the two races I mainly play are Skaven and Chaos. But when they release New Skaven commanders, each one of them has like a new system. For instance, when they released Scryer, they have the Scryer Laboratory. When they did Eshin, they have the contracts. When they release Molder, they have Molder's Gene Lab. So they have done new systems, but that is also very specifically to the Skaven. Outside of that, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So that about covers our thoughts on that. Hold on, let me see if the chat's got anything about it. Jorge says, I'm just a little annoyed with all the numbers and caps. I kind of want to play Total War game, not Hearts of Iron game. I haven't played Hearts of Iron, so I don't get that reference.
My argument for that is Hearts of Iron plays a lot like Crusader Kings. You have big number versus big number. And I'll say anyone who says Total War Warhammer plays like Hearts of Iron either is already negatively predisposed and it doesn't matter what Total War Warhammer 3 is going to be to them. They're just going to hate it. Or they just don't want it to change. They've already accepted the fact that it's going to be whatever it is. It's just going to be like, whatever.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but
because the main difference is
because I think you can state something like you feel like one game plays like another, but I don't think that necessarily means that they're already predisposed to not accepting the new one, as could be better.
Well, no, I'm saying my argument, the reasoning for that is because if you're comparing, like, the only thing I could even I couldn't even compare the economic, because Dawn of War is not Dawn of War, Hearts of Iron is not turn-based. So, Total War is turn-based.
Oh, yeah, that's right, it's not.
The combat is completely different. I have no way of comparing the two, other than it's big numbers versus big numbers. But even when it is big numbers versus big numbers, the combat system is so diametrically different that I can't compare them. So if you're going to actually compare these two games, I can't think of anything to say to make that person have a positive opinion.
Let's see. Horus Heresy Drop Assault is a good game. I don't know, I haven't played that.
I haven't heard of it, honestly.
I'm drawing a blank on that one. I will have to look into that. The 40k game I'm not aware of. That's either a good sign or a bad sign. It's either a good sign because it's a little gem that I missed, or it's a bad sign because I missed it because someone tried to bury it deep in the earth.
And thank you, Jorge, for saying nice stash. Actually, I'm planning on losing it and some more of my hair today.
I plan on gaining hair. I'm not done growing you bastard! It will grow!
No, the funny thing is you're going to call me a copycat because my hairstyle is actually going to be very similar to you. Actually, almost identical to yours. Because, so if you look, I'm going to shave the sides and a little bit more off the top and the back. And I'm going to go clean shaven.
Alright, if you're going to do that, you might want to buy some softening cream, the kind that soothes the irritation. Because I don't care if you have a sensitive scalp or not. If you shave your head, that will cause a lot of irritation. And especially if it's the first time you're shaving it with like a razor, you're going to want that. I don't have to use that stuff anymore because my head's gotten used to it at this point. But just so any first timers who are thinking about shaving chunks of their hair, your hair is not used to that. It wants to grow to at least a certain length. So have that on hand. It'll help a lot. That being said, off topic. Ace 1918 says, ultimately the indie market does more for trying out new things. I would have to agree with that. Because the thing is, I think it comes down to this. The big, rich AAA gaming industry, they have money and don't want... They're all about maximizing profits, minimizing expenses, and, again, mostly paying off the stockholders, the CEO, the CFO, and pretty much everybody in the board of directors. If all those people are happy, and again, they minimized expenses, maximized profits. They're golden. They have nowhere along that chain do they give a damn about the consumer whatsoever. That's the reality of the capitalism in the market. It sucks. It's crap. But at the same time, I'd rather have that as a economic system than any other. Because at the very least, it's honest. But at the same time, the reason the indie market makes risks and does give us some golden gems out there in the indie market is because they're not a corporation. There's no stockholders. There's no board of directors. There's no CFO, CEO. You could say that the creator of the studio is a CEO. It's some guy in his garage, and he has maybe 2 to 3 other friends who he gets together with. They make a fucking game. They program it. They get all the art assets. They put it on Steam, and they might get lucky and get a couple $100. Some YouTuber plays it. Game blows up. They make millions. But that's the reason the indie market has any risk takers is because when you have nothing to lose, you have everything to gain by taking risks. And again, because the people are dissatisfied with the AAA market, indie devs taking risks at this point isn't as much a gamble as it is in what way are you going to succeed. I don't want to make too many people too optimistic, like, oh, well, I was wanting to get games. Well, he just made me want to jump into the market. I'll take all the risks. No, don't take every risk in the book. Some things certainly are repeated because they work. But at the same time, taking risks is because the AAA companies don't want to do it because they don't want to risk their profit margins. Because of that, their profit margins are never going to go up. That's another thing that, is you see in the capitalistic system as kind of a checks and balance of itself. Because they won't take risks, the consumer will go somewhere else. And the indie market is flourishing. Right now, anyway. Hopefully it'll continue to. But who's to say? That is the downside, is the indie market, the one thing that they don't have is advertisement money.
I mean, that's fair.
That sucks. But at the same time, the indie market is flourishing because it's full of people who can take those risks. And, all the power to you if you're in the indie market making a game right now. Like Kibbs. Nathan, thank you for the super chat, man. Thank you. Let's see. I can't read every comment, so I'm just gonna skip by the ones who are responding to one another. Jeez, there's the alarm. Ace just said, it is more a problem with corporations than with capitalism. Ultimately, the free market punishes a lack of innovation in the end. Exactly, like I just said. That's very much, what I was going with is, in the end, that's the ultimate self-checks and balance with the system of capitalism, is once corporations get as corporate as they are, get as soulless as they are, and the consumer starts to feel it, starts to, get that secondhand carelessness and lack of being supported, even the dumbest consumer will eventually just naturally move away from the bigger corporation. That's how big corporations start to fall, is they get complacent. And when you get complacent, you stop providing what the consumer wants. Eventually, the consumer will bleed away. The one reason the AAA companies that we see like EA or Activision are able to hold on to their audiences is they are masters at putting up the farce that they care. The general consumer is not a smart person. Not to insult anybody out there, but the general consumer is not a smart person. They are sheep. As long as the company puts on a big advertisement like, we care about our consumers, we're doing everything in our power, look at this new game, look at this, look at all these new features, that you don't see them advertise, look at all the things we fucked up in development. No, they're like, look at all the things we're adding this, and that, and they're counting on the consumer not to double check any of that, and not to hold them accountable when the product comes out. And thankfully, the gaming industry, the general consumers of the gaming industry are getting smarter, but the majority of them still play games like football, like the Madden games, like FIFA, and those games are copy and paste every fucking year. And they're not even subtly copy and pasted. Like, there are screenshots out there of the latest Madden that has like banners that say Madden 2020 when it's supposed to be 2021. Like, they didn't even change over assets. That's how lazy they're getting. And the common consumer isn't going to notice because they just lop it up.
I mean, it is EA killer of all good game industries.
Mm-hmm. So the reason the reason big corporations are lasting longer nowadays with their shady laziness is they're masters at pretending. Put a face of the company forward, make him look like he gives a damn, and the general consumer will lop it up. Todd Howard, anyone? There you go. Pretend you care, everybody will buy it. Money!
And this is when I think we're going to agree to disagree, because I do think he genuinely cares. He just got screwed by his higher-ups.
Yeah, screwed with all that money.
Well, no, because, like I said, there was a lot that he said, and it came out that he meant it. It was just the higher-ups ended up overriding. So I believe, to an extent, he does care about doing what's right for the consumer, but it just can't. The higher ups are like, yeah, we get that you care about them, but they're sheep, so do it our way.
I don't know. Personally, I've always gotten the vibe that he doesn't care. At least in the recent stuff with the Fallout 76 stuff, when that first was coming out, it felt like a show to me. On stage at E3, that felt like a show to me. That's my takeaway. You know, we can agree to disagree, but my takeaway is no, he's doing his job, and I think he sees it as that. Which, you know, I'm not gonna shit on a man for doing his job and getting paid. I am gonna shit on him for, you know, I won't shit on him for this, but I will say I don't think it was real. I don't think he cares. And to be fair, when you have that much money to piss off, why would you, to be frank?
And I will say, for the people watching, this is a good example of where me and Asmodan don't agree on everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things where I think it's what makes us really good co-hosts, is because we get along really well, but we don't agree on everything.
Ace 1918, he says this to me, but I would say it's more towards you, especially after that. I'd say if Todd Howard really cared, he would let Obsidian develop a new Fallout game. Just try to compare the writing in New Vegas and 4.
You don't want me to do that, Ace.
Oh boy. Ace, just for context, Ludus hates New Vegas.
Ludus does hate New Vegas.
Hates it. I will never understand that, considering it's my favorite Fallout, but
it is the worst in the series.
It is my favorite.
I will say there are some things Obsidian did right, but I do not like that game at all.
Yep, another good example of where we don't agree. In fact, we vehemently disagree on that one. It's the beauty of it, though. I think I almost missed this, but Fincart said it earlier. Exactly, indie market can make risks because it has low investment compared to AAA. If it flops, you didn't waste millions of dollars. Exactly. So you could sympathize with larger companies in that scenario. Is they are looking at, you know, employing and keeping employed thousands of employees, thousands of developers and HR teams and people who are just trying to earn a living while doing so while doing a job they enjoy. Now, corporations do have to do that. That's like you could definitely say the moral gray area of like mega corporations is they do have a lot of people to employ, other than the big heads of the company who they pay the most to and give golden parachutes and stuff like that. But at the same time, they still also got to employ the little guy who keeps their job possible. So big corporations do have to keep that in mind, is with their risks that they take and allow to be taken by their developers. That's a part of the risks. Is it with the indie dev? If you have no loss, the biggest loss you have is you just wasted your time. And you just wasted your time, wasted whatever money you personally invested in the software you used to develop the thing. That's it. But basically, you would just lose that quote unquote job opportunity. In a mega corporation, if a game utterly flops, it's the risk you took was a complete flop. That's thousands of people without jobs because they now have to make ends meet so they could still satisfy stock percentages and things like that, and still make profit margins. Like it's a lot more of a game of number calculations with bigger corporations, and again, that's like the soulless aspect of it. And you can, there's still an argument to be had, like about like that side of things when it comes to like mega corporations, especially when we're talking about industries like gaming or Hollywood, where the product that they're making has to have a level of passion to it. Because if you just churn out stuff like an assembly line for a car, that makes sense. There's no soul in a car. There's no talent. It's just
EA.
It's just set to the parameters. Once you start churning stuff out like it's on an assembly line, you treat the product like it's just another thing on that assembly line you got to throw parts into. There's no passion in what you're throwing into it. It's just routine. So that's why we see major problems with places like Hollywood and the gaming industry with their especially the AAA side of things, with the development and the game quality we've been getting, is because they're producing a product that should be a product of passion and love that's being churned out in an assembly line. Ergo, Madden, whatever number you want to throw in. FIFA, whatever number you want to follow that up with. They're churning them out. The first Madden game probably did have passion in it. The people who made it were probably big sports fans. They were probably taking a risk since there weren't a lot of other, sports games on the market, or if there were, they're trying to beat those out. There was probably a little bit of passion behind it, at the very least. And after all, the games market is still flooded with them, and people still flock to them every year. So where it started, the epicenter of that franchise had to have had some passion behind it. But fast forward to now, whoever started it, long gone, probably replaced by 30 other developers filling the same position. The corporatization, the deadlines, the complications, all that leading up to now, to the latest one, it's probably garbage now. That's the unfortunate reality of where things start to where they end up. The people who start things are always the ones who will have the most passion and love for it. Once they get to the modern day, whoever inherited the passion project doesn't have the passion, they have the green. And that's what they want more of. They don't want to invest passion and money. They want to gain money and fuck passion. That's unfortunately the reality of inherit. It's kind of like unions. I know it's kind of slightly political, but like the people who start unions, like look back at the old Ford assembly line days when like unions were started to protect workers and stuff like that. The people who started those unions were workers who were getting fucked by the company and were tired of it and took a stand. Those guys were awesome. The guys who run those same unions now are in it for a paycheck. That's it. It's like that same exact concept. The people who start something will never be outdone in terms of passion as the people who inherit it. That's just my take on it.
And I'm glad you said that because that made me think of something, but I also want to respond to something in chat. Right. Jorge said big companies have a lot of fat, where small companies are a little on the slim side, allowing more folks to invest in product, I think, cut the fat. Here's the problem. When you do that, the chances are you're going to cut out the people who actually do give a damn. For instance, maybe like a specific game developer, maybe a producer of the game, hell, maybe even a lead designer. So these are people that all do a job. Same way me and Asbegun do what we need to do for our YouTube channels, and when we do have jobs, because I know Asbegun had a job recently, and like when I'm at work and not out on fucking medical leave, it's all about doing that job. So you're now talking about getting rid of people doing their job who might just be doing what they're told to do. That ain't right. That's not cool by me. Now, the thing that you made me think of is talking about, all these companies doing this shit. I would be willing to bet, even if Obsidian did do a new Fallout game, it would not be the same team from New Vegas. The turnover rate, I could almost guarantee you, there might be like one or two people, but probably not the team that did New Vegas. If that's what people fucking want, it's not going to be Obsidian that does it. Because they've probably gotten scattered, all over the place. They probably went on to a better opportunity. So, what everyone is wanting is they want a specific team to do a Fallout game that probably isn't even working together anymore, or at least most of them aren't still working in Obsidian. All because they think Obsidian did a better job than Bethesda when Obsidian was being directed by Bethesda on how to do the game. So think of it this way. All it really is adding in the middleman. Bethesda has a development. Bethesda had a development team do Fallout 4. Bethesda had a development team do Fallout New Vegas. The difference is the development team that did Fallout New Vegas was Obsidian. That's the main difference. Again, Jorge, you're talking about getting rid of people from jobs who are doing their jobs just because you don't like what they do at this point.
Ace with the super chat. Thank you, Ace. Speaking of New Vegas, either of you keeping tabs on the dumpster fire that is the Frontier mod? Easily the biggest disaster in the history of mods. I have not. I don't really heavily mod. Thing is, I heavily mod Skyrim. I don't have, well, except for like some recent issues with that. For those who saw that stream, couldn't even start the fucking game because the one horse decided he used another horse's neck in the starting game as a fucking jump rope. So apparently, having a couple mods installed, decided I'm not working anymore. So,
God damn it!
Despite that, live, damn it, breathe.
That's because you're gonna fucking kill me.
I'm not trying to kill you. Just saying. So despite that little disaster, I don't really mod like the Fallouts I play. I usually play like vanilla New Vegas or with the DLC expansion. I'm trying to remember the name. Wasteland Wanderer, is that it? No. There's there's two of them I can think of. I think, but drawing a blank. But I play Fallout New Vegas like that usually, and I just keep playing like vanilla of it. I don't know why. I've never like loved the mods made for like any of the Fallout games. Not that I hate them or I think the mods are lazy or somehow. I don't know. The mods I've played with Skyrim are always fun, and I think it's because it's the fantasy theme. Something about like the Fallout, dystopian, post-apocalypse. I kind of want to keep that vibe whenever I play it. Any of the Fallouts, like any of them, I kind of want to keep that vibe when I play them. I don't know what it is. Don't ask. It's just something weird about me. I like modding the hell out of Skyrim. I don't like modding Fallout games. Don't ask why. I don't know. It's just like an internal thing.
I'm going to interject real quick because Yokai pointed out something that I heavily disagree with.
So, by the way, welcome to Gavin Isaacs and Yokai. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the podcast. Well, it's a streaming podcast. The main
difference is because the head writer and game director of Fallout New Vegas is the one necessary. The rest is expendable for a new Fallout.
Wait,
so game developer, game producers who do have a say in how the game goes, multiple writers, multiple development teams. No, the rest are not expendable. I don't know why you think that or that is how making a game works, but no. And Aura is asking us to rehash our thoughts on the new Warhammer 3.
I thought we summed it up pretty well, but I could say it again.
We went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. I thought we summed up our thoughts at the end of that, though, fairly well.
Yeah, we did.
Or I might not have been here for that. But either way, I'll hash it again. I am cautiously optimistic. Like, I can't really call it optimism. I'm more cautious and curious how it'll be, and I would love it if it innovated on the innovated on the Total War franchise as a whole, and was more than just a graphical update. But unfortunately, with the way the gaming industry has been swinging lately, I'm convinced it won't be that. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna pretend by any standard that there's no way I'm wrong or anything. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping that when Total War Warhammer 3 comes out, it'll be fucking amazing, and it'll be as good, if not better, than its predecessors in the same franchise of Total War games. But I'm not at all expecting that. I'm expecting it to be, at best, on par with Total War Warhammer 2, and be basically a facelift, if anything.
Essentially, I tend to agree with that. I think what they're going to do is kind of like what they do with Crusader Kings, and what they've done so far with Total War, is they're going to release it, and then if you've unlocked DLC for 1 and 2, it will already be unlocked in 3, and then release its own DLC for 3.
Yeah. So, let us know if that was somehow unsatisfactory of a summation of our thoughts. We try again to try and be more simple about it.
Well, no, Aura said she,
I don't know.
Yeah, they needed to leave. So I think it was just maybe they forgot what we said and just wanted a really quick recap.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Aura, on the podcast, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Ace did a super chat. Ace says...
I would not say that out loud.
Okay, let me read it before saying any of it out loud. Sure. I can censor that. Well, here's the news for it. One of the devs was a confirmed they had tons of weird mepish stuff in the mod, like... Yeah, I couldn't read most of that, so I might as well not read it. That's shit.
So, as far
I'm glad I'm not following that mod, then.
Well, no, okay, so I know what he's talking about, and I've seen them talk about this on my Discord, because I have a lot of Fallout fans on my Discord, and they did kick out that dev.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about that personally, so I'd have to lean on your familiarity with the situation.
And also... as far as him being a something / something, second part, absolutely agree. Shit person. First part, I don't care. I don't care at all. There are people that are that on my Discord server. And
so you're not bothered by the fluffy stuff, but the other stuff.
The other stuff, now, and then
I'm not a furry, by understand. I don't think you're a bad person. If you're that, I don't particularly care. I think it's weird, and people have tried to explain it to me. I don't get it. Don't try. I just don't understand, and I don't know if I want to know.
But it inherently does not make someone a bad person, is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
if it's weird. If you're offended by me saying that, fine. But I find it weird. It's strange. I don't think you're a bad person inherently, but it's weird. The other thing, however, the one that starts with a P, if you're that, you are a horrible person. Die. Please. Do the world a favor. And if you call, I'm like, oh no, I'm a map. I don't care. You're
Still
that.
Fucking
Die. Do not live. So, cease. Hold your breath underwater.
I'm gonna go on a little bit of another part of this, and after this, I do want to get in the StarCraft v Warhammer thing, because if not, we're gonna be stuck on this for too long. As far as like people having certain kinks, I am the worst person to say that to, because that's like half my fucking lifestyle here. So don't like. Everyone has kinks. Everyone does.
Yeah, but everyone also has a line on what is a kink and what is not. What is becoming like too far of an action, I would say.
No, absolutely. It's one of those things where everyone has different stuff that they're into. So if you want to talk about someone having kinks or shit like that, you've already lost me, because that's just no. You shouldn't have an issue with what someone else does.
No, you cut out right there.
You should not have an issue with what someone does in private. It's their business, not yours. So if you have a problem with someone being into like BDSM, being a furry, and it's different, like what you said, you just don't understand it, so it kind of makes people a little weird. But you don't say like they're a bad person. If you're saying like they're a bad person because they're furry, because they're into BDSM and shit like that, that's not really cool. That's if that makes sense.
Yeah. On that note, welcome Matt the Beast and Angry Neos. And what is those guys just joined. Don't know how many of them just hopped out. It's like, I'm gonna hop in to hear about some Warhammer 3 being announced. Oh, they're talking about furries and shit. I think I joined the wrong podcast. Goodbye. Out of those who stayed,
about furries, it's fucking Skaven. I'll just say that right now. That's all they are.
I'll also say the elves a little bit, but yeah, welcome to those guys. And out of those who stayed, I hope you enjoy. Yeah, but I'm not following, to recap our thoughts on the mod topic, I'm not following that situation at all. I don't mod my Fallout games, like I said, just Skyrim, really. Due to my lack of familiarity, I can't speak to it. If the guy is those things, fuck him. The second stuff, not the very first thing.
Right.
But fuck him. Not the way he would enjoy.
Yokai, I am a sadomasochist, so I enjoy pain being inflicted on myself and others. I challenge you to find someone to call me a bad person.
Who?
Yokai said if you're into sadism, you're inherently a bad person. And I am a sadomasochist. I'm like, I am challenging them to find someone to call me a bad person.
Well, I'm not going to get into like the moral quandary of it, sadomasochism to sadism to masochism. I'd say as long as you're not murdering and beating the hell out of somebody. Yeah, like I said,
wax play between friends.
And I guess the perfect couple would probably be a sadist and a masochist, but yeah, I'm not ready to have that convo because I don't have all my ducks in a row. That conversation. All I know is I'm not either of those things. So I want to. It's weird just to call myself normal, but I guess in that regard, I'm normal.
Well, no, it's just because they said if you're into sadism, you're inherently a bad person. So my argument is being a sadomasochist, not many people would call me a bad person. So go find someone to call me a bad person. I mean, there are people out there that will, but just challenge you to find them.
Let's see. So, Ludus, you naughty dog, Ludus. W, haha. Okay. So, okay. I'm just gonna skip all the comments about that stuff. You know, again, not already have the argument on whether masochism and sadism is somehow morally correct or incorrect. I'm not going to have that, and I'd ask that you, Ludus, not engage in that. Let's just move on from it. Since this is a geek podcast, and yes, geeks can be pretty kinky people, but gonna move on from that. Come on, stay on target.
It's not like YouTube will demonetize it or anything.
No, they don't have any biases. Anyway, so okay, and as we got, how's the art going? Depends on what you mean. Can you clarify what is hate? Ludus TMI. Ludus, actually, Fincard. Ludus TMI. That's how I read him saying. TMI, don't share with us that stuff. We don't need to know. Good boy. Good old chap. It's like, oh, how are you today, Ludus? Oh, I'm a sadomasochist. How are you? Do I shake your hand softly or hard? I don't know.
You assume I would shake your hand to begin with.
To be fair, you also assume I would want to shake your hand. Air shake.
Hey, you know where they've been.
No, I don't. That's the problem. Anyway. Okay, Ace 2018. Ludus. Okay, please Ride to Hell. Ride to Hell Redemption. Yeah.
My Rain said, "Are you sure Slanesh wouldn't corrupt you?" I would corrupt Slanesh.
Slanesh would walk into a room with Ludus with the intent of corrupting him and walk out going, I'm a slave. Leash around her neck.
No, yeah, I was going to say, no. Slanesh would walk in, walk back out with a collar on and a ball gag.
Okay, anyway, moving on. And of course, Marine, please.
Are you sure you don't want to take my advice when we start talking about StarCraft? Warhammer. I did mention that a minute ago.
Yeah, we can move on to that. Anyway, we summed up our thoughts on the new announcement with the Warhammer 3 stuff, so we can now move on to talk about the other topic that was planned for today. Before we do that, I want to see if any of these comments. Sorry.
No, not really.
Is the demon factions. The first coverage I saw was talking about each chaos god being its own faction, while the second said the only thing in terms of new factions I've specifically heard in the grapevine about Warhammer 3 is that the chaos gods thing. Like, they are going to be adding factions for each chaos god, but that's a rumor. The weird thing is when it comes to like specific information about the new Total War for Warhammer 3, I haven't been able to find too many specifics. They're not as hush hush as like some other game projects that were announced in a similar way, but they're fairly quiet about like the details on where like what about Warhammer 3 is the selling point over Warhammer 2. So I don't know why that is. Have your little conspiracy theories on why they're pretty hush hush about all the specifics. But the only thing I've heard is a single rumor that there will be factions for each individual Chaos God. That's like the only specific rumor. And in the trailer itself, it showed some unique individuals in it that could be their own factions. I don't know. I'd have to watch it again to and look up. Like the thing is, I'm not familiar with Warhammer Fantasy / Age of Sigmar, so I don't know what factions there are in that universe. So I'm probably the worst person to ask about that.
I want Khorne and Nurgle factions. That'd be fun.
Khorne factions would be fun to play as. That would be
Nurgle
great.
would be too. Imagine trying to kill those fuckers. Seriously. That would be hard. That'd be really cool to play them because all you do is like get an army of melee troops and just walk them up to a wall. It's like, oh look, there's an arrow sticking out of me. Let's keep hitting the wall.
Like heavy metal just plays in the background. Down with the sickness.
Oh
god.
No, I know what song would play for the Khorne army. Cannibal Corpse Evisceration Plague.
Okay,
it's
what
bad
is
that I pulled that right out of my ass.
Yeah. This is these last two ones addressed to me. These last two comments addressed to me. Oh, actually three. I'll just cover the ones that just popped up. No more, and then we'll move on to the next topic. What is it? No, saw a bit of your art. Asgon looks nice. You talking about the commission I did for Arctic, which is his avatar. Which, by the way, it was very generous of him. I got paid for that commission. It was very awesome, and I'm happy he was happy with it. So I drew that for Arctic, and I also did a video recently where I drew a well-endowed woman at the beach in a very nice orange bikini. Actually, I'm not going to show these emails, okay? So feel free to call me a liar and say these don't exist. Fine. But I received emails from I'm assuming they're 3 different people because it was 3 different emails, but they read like each one could be from the same person, and they're all requests for me to draw lewd art, like the details they were giving were very specific. I've received that since that video. That video only has 200 views. Listen, it took me months to get that creepy guy to ask me for feet pics. Okay? How do I already have emails from people asking me to draw lewd art? And that video only has 200, 300 views. Like, how? I want to know this.
I told you not to tell anyone about the feet pic.
Anyway, Finkar says, so far we have the 4 Chaos Gods, Kislev, and a very heavily implied Cather. Warhammer China? I don't know anything about that, but that'd be interesting. Okay, you have not been posting a lot. You mean videos in the Discord or on the community tab? Or Instagram? Like, which posting a lot do you mean? It was more about mixing demon units from different gods into a single army. Excuse me. But doing that for all the factions, which I don't think they're doing. Probably not. I think they are hush hush because they learned from CD Projekt Red what happens if you promise stuff that is not Senzo. That is true. I prefer hush hush over, hey, we're gonna have this, we're gonna have this, we're gonna have this. Look at all these things we're adding. Then people get the game. One of those is in there. And the others you can technically sort of, political speak, say it's in there too. Don't sue us, please. We don't want to be sued. And then they hold up like the developers like a freaking like a cat, like a lost puppy, like, don't sue us, they'll be punished. Please, they will suffer. Don't hurt the poor developers. All the CEOs hiding in like a single form line behind the puppy/cat dev team picture. It's like, if you punish us, they'll be punished too. They'll lose their job. Please, please.
No. See, you're half right. It's a picture of them putting the developers in a burlap sack and dangling them over a lake.
Pretty much. Or a gun to its like, don't sue us! We'll have to pull the trigger!
Yeah, pretty much. That's a lot closer to the truth.
And I watched YouTube is gonna knock her stream off because I was holding my hand in a gun style. Like, the stream would just get nuked again.
Do a loot of Ludus.
Oh no.
Don't do that.
No, the world isn't ready for that. Ace19, thank you for the super chat, man. Thank you. Good news, Marnie's Calgar issue 4 is out online. Alright, good. Look forward to that tomorrow. I'll let you know, Ace, in the DMs whether or not I can make it to that, because there is, and with the puppy going on right now, videos have slowed the fuck down. Because the thing is, just so everybody knows, I have to take that puppy out every single hour. She's not housebroken at all, and she's pretty slow on the uptake. She's a puppy, and her previous owners were the dumbest motherfuckers ever. Like, they praised her for going pee inside on mats. They were dumb people.
On mats and not just all.
And they had a shock collar on her that was set. Keep in mind, we have horses on my farm. We have an electric fence to keep them in, and that shock collar we got with the previous owners. They're like, oh, here's the, here she is, and it was around her neck. And she's like, here's the button, just gotta press it. That shock collar was designed to also zap her every single time she barked. But the electric fence we used to keep on our horses would be the equivalent of the 20 setting on that shock collar. The shock collar was set to 75. So an electric fence we put up to keep horses in has a lower voltage significantly than a shock collar put on a small 45-pound house dog.
I know what I
Puppy.
can do to teach them a lesson about the shock collar.
Yeah, put it on them.
Well, I was going to say put it on them in an uncomfortable place and turn it up to 75.
It was the stupidest fucking thing. So yeah, suffice to say, our dog's got some issues, and she's, she's not housebroken. She's plenty of issues. So unfortunately, uploads, editing, all that is almost perfectly on hold. I have literally only every hour I got to take her out for a minimum of 15 minutes. So I have 45-minute segments of the day that I can do other stuff. The reason I'm able to do this stream and this podcast is my mom is also home because she's going to law school and stuff like that, so she's doing a lot of studying here. She's here today, so she agreed to, in between classes, take her out for me while I do this. So keep in mind, that's just you call it an excuse. It's what it is. That's why streams, uploads, all that's going to be a little slower. So if I can't do. I know it's random, but it's just to make people aware, and also it's kind of to tell Ace, if I can't make it to the comic stream tomorrow, that's why.
But I perfectly I perfectly understand that, because I don't know how many people know this. Right now I try and do my uploads. I do a week at a time, but I try and do it 2 weeks ahead. I'm actually completely behind where I just finished doing this week's uploads. Like for today, tomorrow, and next day. And I just finished those up right before this stream. Because for the past 2 months, I've been having massive medical problems. So, have been able to do it. So, I get the random, you do what you need to do, man. Real life shit comes before YouTube shit.
Yeah, I just wanted to do that little segment, that little detour, just for anybody who was curious, uploads are kind of slow, streams are kind of, here and there. That's why, I'm doing my best to housebreak a puppy. Anyway, so I was just going to skip the comments about that. We're just going to move on to the actual topic, because we have about an hour left in the podcast, which we'll dedicate to this. So, Ludus, this is your thing, so take her away.
Okay, so, I actually have a video coming out. Let me double check the when. It's going to be this Friday, question mark? Yeah, it's going to be the 5th of first in a mini-series I'm doing on my 40k rants, because I haven't been able to keep up with the lore. And that is, I'm going to do 3 episodes of StarCraft V Warhammer 40k, and the first one is the one that comes out this Friday. Is Terran versus the Imperium's forces, and I have it split up into 3 groups of infantry, armor, and void ships. And I only use one example per because otherwise it would be fucking an hour-long video. The second one will be Tyranid and Zerg. And then the third one will be Eldar and Protoss because the Eldar was the closest thing I could find similar to the Protoss. Now, I know what my thoughts are on Imperium, the Terran Federation or Terran Dominion. But what are your thoughts, Asmund?
Well, it all depends on the timeline, because there was the Terran Confederacy.
This is Dominion under Mix.
Okay, so the Dominion. Oh, boy. Okay, so...
And I actually did do... I went through a theoretical siege of Core Hall, but that's something completely different. Just to set the guidelines, the way I did it was infantry. I did in a Stardust versus a StarCraft Marine. Armor, I did a siege tank versus an Astartes Predator. And for Void, I did a battle cruiser versus an Imperial Navy battle.
Well, I guess the parameters I would have to set for my answer would have to depend on certain factors in your proposition. So the first thing I would have to establish for rules is Void / Warp effects, Chaos Gods. Is this present in this conflict, or are we excluding that just for the sake of focusing on the individual strength of the two?
The individual strength. So it would literally be a...
So we're excluding... That would include Psychers, by the way.
Oh, no, there would be Psychers.
Okay, then we would also have to... Connected with them, though, we would also have to include the risks of Psychers, which is Warp, which is Demons, so we have to leave them in, which is interconnected to the Psychers in 40k.
When it comes to Librarians, there's little risk. There's not no risk, but there's a lot less risk.
Yeah, but the risk
I just put it as a non-factor.
Well, the problem with having it as a non-factor in that case is that takes out a large portion of what Psychers are in 40k and how they would do against Psychics in StarCraft. So that's a portion of it that I think if you're going to have Psychers factored in, you have to factor in all of their connected risks, which include you overusing their powers, corruption by chaos. That's all stuff you have to either completely take out or leave in.
Well, the idea was it's just essentially the martial prowess of the Imperium's forces versus the martial prowess of the Dominion.
Okay, well, for the sake of it, I'll exclude Psychics and Psychers from...
I mean, I didn't really use them at all, so, I mean, that's fine. Like I said, I just basically did baseline Stardust versus StarCraft Marine.
Oh, yeah, well, I was looking at it like big picture, like all of Imperium versus all of the Terran Dominion. If that's the case,
all of Imperium versus all of Terran Dominion.
And in the case of just factoring out Psychers and the Warp entirely, and that also would include Psychics in the StarCraft universe, just completely factoring them out just for the sake of simplifying it. There's still a lot of different rules between the two universes. But I would say the Imperium has the advantage due to sheer size. However, the Terran Dominion has advantage due to, again, in a weird way, their organization. The Terran Dominion, I would say, as it's described in StarCraft lore, is not small, but it's not massive. It's not like billions of planets, trillions of citizens per sector. It's not as big as the Imperium by any standard. Therefore, and also their means of combat are weaker and watered down compared to what the Imperium has to face against them. Not necessarily is it a complete wash match, but I would say that the Terran Dominion would be very much treated in terms of how they would be seen if you just took the Kerpruda sector and the Terran Dominion and plopped them in the universe of 40k. They would just be seen as another rogue sector of worlds controlled by non-Imperium humans and would simply be conquered. They would not be another faction I would say, in and of themselves. They would just, compared to everybody else, they'd just be fractional in size. At best, they'd be seen as renegades. So I would say that from that aspect, they are at a huge disadvantage. However, due to the disorganization of the Imperium and the lack of communication, the lack of consistency, it would very much depend on what the Terran Dominion would go up against initially. And if like, let's say they go up against Astartes initially, not, let's say, the Death Corps of Krieg, not the Catachan Jungle Fighters, not any of the Guardsmen. If they face solely a contingent from a chapter of Space Marines, I would say the losses would be, depending on, of course, the chapter they're up against. The losses that the Terran Dominion would face would be much larger against an Astartes combat force, especially if it were, let's say, a crusading chapter like the Black Templars, where numbers are very much larger and the aggression is also there. So the Black Templars would, I would believe, subdue them in a matter of maybe a year. I don't know, to give credit where credit's due. The Terran Dominion has a lot of interesting technology and tactics. They have usually a lot of experimental ideas that they test on the fly. The Terran Dominion are roughneck very much. So I think they'd hold out for a while. Not for any extended period of time, and certainly not for anything that an Astartes contingent, especially Black Templars, would not be prepared to face and easily crush over a course of time. The thing that would give the Terran Dominion time, the thing that I think that would help them last, is simply their versatility and their ability to adapt and apply new technology on the fly. That aspect of the Terran Dominion and of the Terrans from StarCraft that we see, obviously in the games, you could argue that it's overblown. That, like, let's say the new technology that's developed by Swan on the technology he adapts and then quickly applies to the battlefield isn't done as quickly as the game implies. Like, it's a matter of like a day or two.
Right.
But I would still argue that they would probably still be developing stuff rather fast. We're talking a matter of weeks to maybe a month to develop brand new tech to face their enemy. There's no way, I think, even with the resources that the 40k universe provides, that they would quickly or completely adapt to an Astartes attack force. No, they would be too overwhelmed, too quickly pushed back, and they would not have enough time to adapt instantly. But I feel like the experimentation, the adaptation, and their versatility would give them time, but they would eventually fall to the Imperium, especially if it was against Astartes, within a matter of less than a year.
So I had an interesting argument for versus with the infantry specifically. So let's hypothetically say, and I don't believe this, that their armor in StarCraft is comparable to Astartes Ceramite.
It's not.
It's not. But
No.
I'm going to give them the benefit of it not being like fucking tissue paper and saying it is. They fire, and I've been told this, I looked it up, they fire depleted uranium shell. This will essentially be the equivalent of just a big fucking bullet. And this will go through Space Marine, I'll say, for terms of simplicity, I'll say Marine and Astartes. It will go through Marine armor. I would say, hypothetically, it could go through Astartes armor after a few shots, but it would eventually go through. If an Astartes got shot by that, it would hurt. It would create a hole, but he would probably keep going. Now let's compare that to a fucking bolt round, which, explodes. It would go into the armor and create two halves of a Marine.
That's like being generous. It would be more of a million mini Marines in all the blood that gets the mist that's left over. From...
So, but on that note, I actually did bring up this point, and I brought up the Black Templars specifically. Let's say, it is the Black Templars that find them first. Then it doesn't matter what the fuck you shoot them with. They're going to come into melee, and they're going to have some fun, and they're going to tear them the fuck up. Because there are not that many good melee Terran.
No,
I mean, they have fire bats, which are good close range combat, but not close quarters combat. And
I can't think of any like true melee Terran units.
and
I
the
could
other
be
thing
drawing
I
a
said,
blank, but I can't think of any melee
in
Terran.
something I thought that was funny. Imagine a battlecruiser going up against an Imperial Navy capital ship. And the example I gave, just because one I specifically know, is the Vengeful Spirit. Imagine that going up against a battlecruiser, or fucking 5, just for sake of shits and giggles. It would create dust clouds that were Russian a minute ago. Battlecruisers may be big, but fucking capital ships are massive. And by the way, Jorge, here's something I brought up. I did a hypothetical siege of Core Hall using the entirety of the Death Corps of Krieg. Not just one army. I mean, like every Krieg guardsman. And this is also just based off my knowledge. I believe the Death Corps would take heavy losses, but they would take Core Hall.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely. A, because of fucking numbers. But B, that is their bread and butter. Is just massive fucking siege. So when you say Imperial Guard versus Dominion, remember, there are different Imperial Guards. There's Death Corps, there's Catachan, there's Cadian, there's
So let me go through, like, I won't like go as in depth as I did with my my hypothesis with, let's say, Black Templars versus the entirety of the Terran Dominion. I'll go more like a simplistic route. So, but I will be narrowing down the list. So if I thought I'll just go through like how like the no win scenario. With how divided the Imperium is, you kind of have to break it down to their sub armies. It's inevitable because unfortunately, because of how divided they are, you might as well just be fighting that army. The Imperium will not send an entire contingent of Astartes and Death Corps of Krieg and Admech. They're not going to send Titans and the Imperial. They're not going to send all that unless they're up against a threat that is needed, like chaos. Or a massive wave, a wog of orcs.
Yeah.
Again, as I said earlier with my hypothesis of how the Terran Dominion would be viewed by the Imperium, they would be viewed as a renegade sect of humans that need to be converted or destroyed. So that they'd send a force that would be equivalent to that. Either just the Admech, just some Death Corps Krieg, just in a small Astartes group. They would spend something small that they thought met the threat and would annihilate it. So in that case, if they send a contingent of Death Corps Krieg, I would say that would be a Terran Dominion loss. Because Death Corps Krieg, A, have no desire for self-preservation, B, master of siegecraft, and a no retreat policy. So
I love that because that's basically what I said. I was like, they don't give a shit if they die in this.
They don't. They do care if they die pointlessly. That's like they're not suicidal, but they want to die with a point. But they still want to die
with a shovel point, preferably in the enemy.
Exactly. They want to die pointlessly though. That's just an embarrassment to the Emperor. Now, if we do Catachan jungle fighters, that would be a win for the Catachan, I believe, as well. Now, it would also depend on the environment. That would be more of a factor than Death Corps Krieg. But I feel that if we look at Core Hall, that's mostly... I would compare that as a very city-like planet. There's not a lot of nature. There's not a lot of forests. It seems like it's fairly barren outside of just the Terran cities.
Core Hall is Krieg. They go through almost the exact same fucking thing.
Yeah. So... looking at that scenario, that's strange. I'm sorry, she just doesn't usually bark. Anyway, in the scenario with the Catachan jungle fighters, I would see very easily that the environment would have an effect. Considering how barren Core Hall is, it's not a jungle planet. There wouldn't be as much wildlife to exploit. They would have to fight in an open field. In that case, these Catachan jungle fighters would do poorly, but they would still win, I think. Because they still have brutality, they still have numbers, and they still have effectivity and strategy. So I feel that though the Catachan jungle fighters would struggle more, in my opinion, than Death Corps of Krieg, they would still be brutal against the Terran Dominion. Their losses would be significant, but they would still win in the end. Now, if we then look at Cadians would be the case where I would say, again, like with the Catachan Jungle Fighters, they would have some struggle, but the Cadian forces are very well trained, very well armed. They're just not as brutal as the Catachan Jungle Fighters. So I would say they would struggle as much or slightly more than the Catachan Jungle Fighters, but they, again, would still win. Just with larger losses, in my opinion.
I think they would struggle less because Cadia fights in constant war right next to the Eye of Terror. And because of that, I believe they're so experienced.
Well, I guess this would also depend. These Cadian units I'm talking about, would they be true Cadian born, as in they were raised on Cadia? And is this, again, during the time where, before Cadia fell, or is this post-fall of Cadia?
Well, my argument was based along the lines of, hold on 1 second.
Okay.
My son is bringing,
I didn't hear the last part.
Okay, he walked off.
Okay.
So no, my argument is based on, like, if we're saying they're true Cadians, they would have less issue because of their experience.
Well, yeah, if they're true Cadians who grew up on Cadia and they're a true-born Cadian unit, I would agree. Their experience with fighting in a cityscape, especially one that Koral I would argue would be in some way similar to some of the battlements they're used to living on in Cadia, I'd say definitely that's a win scenario, and an easy win because they're familiar with the environment and the strategies employed in cityscapes for defenses. Cadia would win. But if I would say easier. Like, I wouldn't say I would say it would be almost a squash match. Because Cadia has numbers.
No, absolutely.
They have massive numbers, they have drop pods, and they have massive amounts of artillery.
Yeah,
Lehman Russ tank waves, we're talking massive damage. And I'm not saying that they won't have losses. Oh no, they'll have losses. It's Cadia. But their experience in fighting in that environment, I think that they would have a better time if they're true-born Cadians. If they're a Cadian regiment that was formulated after the fall of Cadia, and there are less true-born Cadians who lived on Cadia in that unit, and they just simply wear their armor, they're a regiment that is born of the Cadia, but are not necessarily Cadians. Yeah. They would struggle more.
I'm Canadian now.
I know what you mean, but respect to the Cadians. Rest in peace, Cadia. I would say in that case, they would be I would say there'd be more difficulty because they're not experienced in that same environment. They might be. Some of them might have been true-born Cadians and can tell the others, what it's like to fight in a cityscape siege. But assuming that the lack of experience on the majority of them, that would affect their effectivity in that combat scenario.
Would seriously drop,
Yeah.
I'm gonna use the restroom real quick, and then and I'll let you talk about it for a minute. But I do actually. I agree with you a lot now because I misunderstood that. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you on those points.
Yeah.
But I'll be right back.
Okay. So we went through Catachan Jungle Fighters, Cadians, and then Deathcore of Krieg. New Vestroyans. Not sure how they would do. Wait, did I say New Vestroyans or Vestroyans? Well, anyway, you know who I'm talking about. I'd say they do pretty damn good. I'll just zip through them. Vestroyans do very, very good. Let's see. It's another regiment. Fuck. Cadian. Deathcore Krieg, Vestroyans. There's more than that. I knew that, but I'm drawing a blank. Fuck. All right, I'll come back to that. There's another one there, but I'm not remembering it. It's drawing a blank. Fuck. No. Well, anyway, we'll come back to it. Let's see. Let's just go off of Imperial Guard for a moment. We're talking about Sisters of Battle. I think Sisters of Battle would be brutal against the Terran Dominion.
Korhal would be on fire.
They'd be on fire, yeah. I'm trying. The thing is, they drop their tank is a pipe organ missile launcher, and they drop fucking churches on the battlefield playing church hymns and shit. Like, just from that, I can imagine how shocked, like, all the the Terran Dominion Marines. That alone would just throw them off their game. Like, what?
So people keep asking about the AdMech. Let me explain how the AdMech would go. What,
Okay.
maybe like 1 or 2 Imperator class Titans would be all it would really take?
Oh.
Because they would absolutely be able to do nothing against that armor. And they would just be sitting there, oh, tink, tink. Make the city disappear. Oh, make that city disappear.
AdMech would wreck house against the Terran Dominion.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's no argument there. So Sisters of Battle would wreck house. Stardies would wreck house. Depending on the Imperial Guard Regiment, there would be some struggle, but again, most of them I would say would overrun the Terran Dominion, especially on Core Hall, quickly. So, like, I'm trying to think. So I went through most of the Imperial Guard regiments. There was one the Valhalla and Winter Soldiers. That was one. There was another one. Valhalla and Winter Soldiers. I think they would do as good and / as bad as the non-Cadian-born Cadian regiments. I think they do about as good. They have massive losses, definitely. Their lack of experience in that specific environment would affect them, but they would be pretty... At the end of the day, their artillery, their numbers, and eventually their... Again, and the thing is, they're also all the Imperial Guard regiments are used to fighting in worse conditions than a planet like Core Hall. So that alone would mean that that battle attrition against those Imperial Guard regiments wouldn't be as bad as it probably would against the Terran Dominion. So pretty much every Imperial Guard unit would at the very least win. Really, the argument would come down to who would just win how easily and with how many losses.
And so the one that I'm actually most interested in your opinion, is actually not even this one or the Tyranid one, but the Eldar versus Protoss.
Eldar versus Protoss.
Oh yeah.
Protoss losing Ire or post?
We're going to say end of StarCraft 2.
Okay, so having regained Ire and rebuilding.
Yeah, in the process of rebuilding, yeah.
Well, that means their numbers would still be down. Are we assuming their numbers have recovered?
I'm going to say theoretically the armies will. Well, actually not, because both of them really have diminished numbers. Eldar never really have had really good numbers. Because, I mean, they're a fucking dying race, so...
Chronicler says, remember, Eldar have D cannons. Also, Nathan, thank you for the super chat, man. Thank you. Let's see, Eldar have D cannons.
Due to Protoss being in the process of rebuilding, and due to the Eldar being a dying race, I'll say the numbers will probably be close to similar.
So it would come down to an argument of technology. The Eldar are always shown off to have advanced technology, but the thing is, their advanced technology is shown to be easily exploited with especially with pylons and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So the Eldar don't have that kind of crucial weakness. Not that I can think of.
But the Protoss are physically.
True. Protoss make up for physicality.
The Eldar are physically weaker, but they are much more mobile. Damn, I thought of another good one to go up against the Protoss V Tau. But
in that case, I would say the Protoss.
I would be much more inclined to say Protoss A because I hate the Tau, and B just because I want to see them get their blue ass.
In that scenario, let me explain that, and we'll go back to the Eldar one. In the scenario of Protoss V Tau, the reason is because the Tau you implement to combat melee attacks, they implement shield drones. The thing is, Protoss have multiple units that can teleport past that, and they have their own units that can implement drones that implement shields. So they're familiar with that technology and would know how to subvert it strategically. So, with their warp technology and their experience with similar technology, it would come down to I would say the Protoss would overwhelm them with Templar. just zealots would surge the battlefield and would easily work around those warp shields, and would eventually, though with losses, don't get me wrong, Tau would still pick at them. I would still say that Protoss would win.
Imagine the Dark Templar fucking up the Ethereum.
That'd be hilarious. Yeah, and Tau were susceptible to stealth. Stealth units, especially ones that can move around like Dark Templar, they're susceptible to stealth. So a stealth unit specialization with Dark Templar, they would get their asses wrecked. So in that case, I would say Protoss would be an easy win against Tau. Though, of course, Tau players would probably make fair arguments on where counters could be made. And being not a Tau player myself, I am going based on what I do know of them. On what I know of them, I would say Protoss, based on what I know of both parties, Protoss would win. But back to the Protoss v Eldar. In the case of Protoss v Eldar, again, with psychic powers and all that being implemented, I would say it would be either... It would be those two factions, I would say, would probably be the closest to a draw.
Oh, yeah.
Because their technologies are both extremely advanced. They both are very mobile, and they can fight hard. They both have advantages with hit-and-run tactics. The only advantage I would afford the Protoss is they can sustain an attack, and in a way sieges, longer than I think the Eldar can. The Eldar are far more prefer hit-and-run tactics. They want to hit you fast, hard, and then back off before you have a chance to, reciprocate. The Protoss hit you hard, fast, and they can keep doing it. So, I think that alone would give them that one hair of an advantage over the Eldar. I would have to give it to Protoss. Now, we are talking about Craft World. We're not talking about the Drukhari, right?
I mean, that would be a fun conversation, dude.
That would entirely change the factors.
I think Drukhari would absolutely stomp Protoss.
The Drukhari, they're fast, hit and run tactics, but they're far more brutal.
I was gonna say lethal. They're not really brutal, but they're lethal.
Well, that's what I mean.
And homunculi are a thing.
Drukhari, their factors are different enough. I would have to give it to the Drukhari if it was Drukhari v Protoss. If we're doing Protoss v Craft World, I would have to give it to the Protoss. Again, being able to sustain the fight.
I agree, but I'm going to say it in a little bit of a different way. Because I think you're exactly right, where the Eldar specialize in hit and run tactics, and the Protoss just smash and fucking smash. It comes down to, will the Craft World Eldar be able to pick off enough of the Protoss in time with hit and run tactics that when the Protoss do finally reach them, that their numbers will be buffering for me as well?
No, it says it has no data. What?
I don't know.
I guess the signal just briefly cut out. Nope. In Streamlabs, it looks like it's still good.
It fixed on mine too.
Okay.
But yeah. So I think when it comes to Craft World, I think they would be able to, kind of like you said with Imperium versus Core Hall specifically, where Core Hall will be able to last a little bit longer against some of the Imperial Guard Regiment. I think it comes down to that with the Eldar. I think they'd be able to last a little while, but I don't think they'd be able to just knock off enough Protoss that by the time the Protoss did get to them, that it would harm.
Yeah. I would say that, again, it's those slight factors. I would still give it to Protoss over Craft World. Drukhari, their brutality, lethality, and their slightly... The way they implement their hit and run tactics is slightly different enough. I would say that the Protoss would, at the very least, their attrition would be terrible.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I also go back to thinking that homunculi are a thing, and that alone would be a massive advantage for me for the Dark Eldar.
What does Hate says? What about the different Toss factions? Now, keep in mind, that's why when I first started this breakdown, I asked at what time period the Protoss are in here, because if it was the case now the parameter that Ludus gave me was at the end of StarCraft 2, which I'm aware of the ending, by the way. I haven't played through the ending, but I'm aware of it. It had spoiled for me, so I just looked up the full ending. I will play through, finally finish it off eventually, but I know the ending. I haven't seen all the cinematics. I know I got in a text description of what happened, so I haven't seen it. So for those who still want to watch those streams, it will be me seeing it for the first time, but I've been given a text description of what happens with like all the factions after the end of StarCraft 2. That being said, the Protoss, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, I could have been lied to. The Protoss, when it comes to the Dark Templar and the Ire Protoss, they combine and rebuild Ire.
Yes.
In the case of Alaric, I've been told, now tell me if this is a lie, that he doesn't join with them and goes off and does his own thing with the Tal'Darim.
To my knowledge, that is also true, that he just kind of goes off and does his own thing.
Gotcha. Okay, so that is true. So with that understanding, that's why I was talking. I was talking specifically about the Ire Protoss and the Dark Templar, who are living in harmony as one society now on Ire.
Now, also, my question is more like as a race overall, so it could include the Tal'Darim. It's just more of just as an overall thing.
Yeah, I was excluding them because, as I understood it, they completely separated from the main body of Protoss.
even if you included them, I don't think it would really make a difference.
Yeah.
I think Protoss would still win against Eldar and would still lose against Dark Eldar.
Yeah. Those would be the biggest factors.
It would still curb Tom Tau. Especially if Alaric is involved, they would definitely.
Yeah, but that's to explain why I wasn't breaking down the different Protoss factions, because as I understood it, the Tal'Darim weren't a factor, and the other two had already combined into one faction. So that's how I was describing it. The Tal'Darim would prove a better challenge to the Eldar. I don't think so. I'd say that the tactics used by the Tal'Darim are, in many ways, virtually identical to how the Ire Protoss operate, with some slight differences in strategies and unit types.
And Jorge keeps saying the greatest advantage of the Protoss is the Kala. If the Eldar break that or take advantage of the Kala, Protoss would lose. Here's why you're wrong. That ends up happening anyway. So that is a non-issue. Yeah, the Kala is already borked.
Well, the thing is, again, as far as I'm aware, with the parameter you set with the Protoss at the end of StarCraft 2, the Kala's already gone.
Yes, it is.
So, Jorge, did you not hear that? Okay, just to make everybody aware, again, we're talking about the Protoss at the end of StarCraft 2, which, as far as I'm aware, they don't get the Kala back, right?
No, because it doesn't just grow back.
Right. So they no longer have that. So I wasn't factoring in either.
Yeah, Kala gone. So that is a non.
Now again, if the parameter I was given was pre-fall of Ire, that would have definitely been a factor I would have put together, and I would give the Eldar an advantage because of their psychic abilities. They'd be able to disrupt the Kala and potentially cause massive damage from that alone to the Protoss to make them submit. But without the Kala, that advantage is gone.
But also, I don't know how much damage they would be able to do to the Kala. That would be something I would have to look into. But so let's say hypothetically, if we still use the same factions of the Nerazim and the Dalan and the I can't think of what basically the Templar and the Dark Templar. It's still kind of a non-issue with the Eldar because the Dark Templar don't have a connection to the Kala.
Yeah.
So if the Templar are getting fucked up, the Dark Templar come in like, hey, we're gonna fuck you in the ass now, and then kill them, and then the Eldar will be fine.
Did you forget Phoenix? And well, the thing is, I don't know Phoenix's fate at the end of StarCraft 2.
They were kind of vague on that one. I don't really remember that either.
Well, I just wasn't told to me. I'm assuming once I finish the game, there'll be something about it.
I think they left it vague. I don't
Do they?
honestly remember. I think I don't remember.
Yeah.
Now he could still be roaming around out there, but I'm not 100%.
I'm assuming the Purifiers are still a part of Protoss society. And again, they merged with the Dark Templar and the normal Ire Zealots.
Yeah, Carneth's Coin says the Purifiers get kind of forgotten, and honestly, I don't know what happens with the Purifiers, so, I mean, if you want to include them, fine, but realistically, I don't think it would make a difference.
Yeah, if we assume that the Purifiers remain with the main society of the Dark Templar and the Templar of Ire, and they merge, all three merge into one, and the Tal'Darim again gone off doing their own thing, all that would do is afford them another advantage, I think, against the Eldar.
And again, even against the Dark Eldar, I still don't think it changes anything realistically. It's just the Dark Eldar, the way, like you said, I think honestly the way they do their hit and run tactics is what would honestly be the worst thing against the Protoss.
Yeah. So I'd say mostly my answers remain the same, factoring those guys in, factoring out the Kala. I would say my answers remain mostly the same.
I mean, if you factor out the Kala, factor in the Purifiers, and I would even factor in the Tal'Darim, Protoss still beat Eldar, Protoss still lose to Dark Eldar.
I would say that with the inclusion of Purifiers and the Tal'Darim, I would say that they would hold out and the war would be fairly long with the Dark Eldar, but the Dark Eldar would eventually beat them via attrition. That would be my only change to my answer, but they'd still win.
Yeah. I don't really think it would be I don't think it would be a win by attrition, mostly because that's not how the Dark Eldar fight. If they start to lose, they'll just retreat and then come back and...
Well, that's what I'm saying. Their hit-and-run tactics would be beating against the Protoss. The Protoss would be playing a war of attrition against their hit-and-run tactics.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So that would wear them down, and eventually either they'd have to adapt to the hit-and-run tactics, which you could argue they could do, but I would hazard to say that the Drukhari would not give them a chance to adapt to their hit-and-run tactics.
Yeah, I don't think that would happen.
And if they thought they were adapting, they would change up their strategy to include more brutal tactics, possibly even include more brutal specific units they would apply to certain attacks and battles. There would be, it would certainly be a war of attrition for the Protoss, and towards the end against Drukhari.
And now, what is he saying? Now the Dark Eldar would be fucked. Here's why I don't agree with that, and I've said this before. We all know who the Night Lords are. The homunculi scare the fuck out of the Night Lords. Imagine what the homunculi would do to the psyche of the Protoss. Like, the Protoss, all of a sudden, an area would just go silent, and they would go and look. And there would be inside-out Protosses hanging upside down. I think the psychological warfare and the hit-and-run tactics, I think the Dark Eldar would just absolutely... I don't think... If you put in all four factions and without the Kala, I do think it would take a hell of a lot longer, but I do think they would just end up winning. Same.
Jorge says, also depends on how the Protoss and the Eldar use future vision in air quotes. Eldar do like to use the Farseers a lot.
Yeah, but the Farseers are fucking morons, so let's not... I think they're a non-issue.
I would say that they're such a small factor, I don't think they change anything. Personally.
This Emperor's son that his brother is being corrupted by chaos. Oh, look! This one's being corrupted by chaos, too! Right in front of
Dragonus Wolford, you must construct additional pylons. The worst of the toss would find them, is what Is Hate says in response to what you just said.
I think what he's trying to say is it would piss off the Protoss so much that the anger would be an advantage to the Protoss.
I would say it would make them disorganized.
It would make them disorganized, and also the way homunculi leave bodies, if they choose to leave them, it wouldn't instill anger, it would instill fear and disgust.
The homunculi scare Fabius bile. Think on that, says Jorge. Yeah, again, I would say even with the purifiers and a lot of the other stuff that you guys have argued, I'd still give it to the Drakari. Their brutality and their hit and run tactics, they'd be and the homunculi, everything about them would be such a bad. Again, in a war of attrition, which I would think it would come down to.
Yeah.
The Protoss would just not be able to recover their forces, would not be able to keep up the fight. Eventually, they'd be beaten down. Now, I'm not saying that it would be a squash match from the get-go where the fight would be fast. No, this would be a drawn-out war in certain ways, and there would be losses and wins on both sides, but I'd have to give it to the Drakari in the end. Personally.
And also, I don't see the Drakari giving up because their favorite sacrifices are psychic snap. And the Protoss are a full-on psychic race. So maybe we ain't stopped. No, we want the entire race. So at least there's a reason for the Drakari to want to fuck up the Protoss.
Yep, that would provide a motivator for sure. Alright, so that's... Okay, so we went through that for a little while, so that's Protoss v Eldar. You got another combo?
It's Zerg v Tyranid, but that's gonna honestly be the most
I'm pretty sure we've argued that before. That is entirely dependent on certain factors that would... If the factors are slightly different in any scenario, it would completely change the outcome. It would, in my opinion, the Zerg would win if it came down to a battle of adapting to the other's strengths and weaknesses. The Zerg are way faster at absorbing and mutating and adapting to their to the biomass they absorb from the enemy. The Tyranids take forever to do it by comparison. They will still adapt. Gene Stealers will still take the Zerg's advantages, but by the time they adapt, in my opinion, the Zerg will have already begun using the Tyranids' advantages against them and would eventually crush them. Now,
I was going to say, it comes down to a question on if the Tyranids have just that many overwhelming numbers. Against someone like the Zerg, I don't think they do.
So, the factors that would define who would win in that scenario is entirely dependent on the slightest change in the scenario.
Yeah. And I really do think that would be Zerg. Because the way the Tyranids do is similar to the Borg from Star Trek. Mm. Oh, we got shot with a phaser. Oh, we got shot with a phaser. Okay, let's adapt against the phaser. And then all of them are now adapted to the phaser. The Zerg are like, oh, this looks sharp and pointy, put it on me. But it's on that individual Zerg. Now, I don't know if that's for the whole swarm, or I'm thinking just primal Zerg.
Yeah.
Concorn
says the Nids have already brutal units to their exposure. I'm assuming he's saying that in the scenario of Zerg v Tyranids, the Zerg... the thing is, the argument could be easily countered with the Zerg also have brutal units. Which you could definitely argue an Ultralisk versus some of the toughest units the Tyranids have is about on par. So, again, I would think... it would, again, depend on a lot of factors we could argue about for hours. Just to simplify it, I would just say, in the end, due to the quickness of their evolutions and adaptations, I would give it to the Zerg.
And I would agree with that, because I think, like I said, it comes down... The only thing I would disagree with this, and this is something I would not have thought of had we not been playing StarCraft 2 autistically as much as we have, is the difference between the Zerg Swarm and the Primal Zerg. I think versus Primal Zerg, Tyranids would win, because the Primal Zerg evolve individually, whereas the Zerg Swarm evolves as a whole. I think the Zerg Swarm would win over Tyranids. Tyranids would win over Primal Zerg.
Moraine just dropped a bomb on us. So what about a 1v1 Master Chief from Halo versus one Ultra Smurf?
Plot armor would win.
Unfortunately, Ultra Smurfs have so much plot armor, they would win.
Hate
to admit it, trust me, I do, but...
But now, if we're talking about a Halo Spartan versus a Stardate, like just a generic Spartan from Halo
I'd say in Astartes.
I would absolutely agree with that.
And the genetic advantages and hardware that an Astartes receives versus what a Spartan receives in the Halo universe, it's just not even funny. The gap in power. If we just look at genetics, the Astartes are given 19 different genetic upgrades from their basic form.
And I think Spartans are given, what, 4?
They're given increased strength, stamina, speed through... they do something to the lungs. They give them increased muscle density, bone density. Yeah. I think it would come down to just maybe 4 or 5 genetic upgrades, and even then the degree of change isn't as crazy as something in Astartes goes through.
Yeah. And realistically, let's even take it down to armor, because this is something I've seen. I've seen this on a different YouTuber's video he did comparing different power armors, and the top 2 were the Warhammer 40k Astartes Ceramite armor, and number 1 was the Mjolnir 2 armor from Halo. Now, I disagree with this because I think bolt round beats shields, but I really do think that anything in the arsenal of the Astartes would let you see the inner thoughts of the Spartan in a very literal sense. Whereas I don't think the Spartan would be able to get to the at all.
Yeah, it's the unfortunate reality of it. As much as I love Master Chief and would love him to beat the fuck out of an Ultra Smurf, I want anyone to beat the fuck out of an Ultra Smurf, but I can't. My boy Astartes, they're designed to be overpowered as fuck.
If a Magnum can kill a Spartan, then a Bolter can 100%.
Jacob Jones, we're getting pretty close to the end of the stream here, but I don't think I'll last few bits here. We're not ending right this second, but we have maybe 10 more minutes. I know this is StarCraft versus 40k, but what are your thoughts on the Yuuzhan Vong from Star Wars EU?
In the 40k universe.
In the 40k universe, okay. I think they'd at least make an interesting faction in the setting. The Yuuzhan Vong, do you know, do I need to explain this to you?
You do, because I have no fucking clue what that is.
Okay, the Yuuzhan Vong, they're in the comics, or the various graphic novels, I can't remember which. They're in the Expanded Universe. I'm a huge lover of the Expanded Universe of Star Wars, so I know way too much about it. But basically the idea was initially that, you know the Sith Empire and what Palpatine was doing that, and the Death Star and all that crap?
Yeah.
Now there's a theory out there about this. I don't know if it was ever confirmed in those comics. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. But it was a theory that the reason he was building the Death Star was not because of the Rebel Alliance. And they were a test subject for it, but the real enemy he was preparing for was the Yuuzhan Vong. Now again, I don't know if I got my lore straight. Correct me if all this I'm about to say is wrong. This is what I think I remember. But the Yuuzhan Vong were a biological horror race that were kind of the same concept as the Tyranids, I would argue. The idea that they just kind of consume the galaxy. They're this overarching threat that's far worse than the Sith could ever be. And they're a biological horror. I don't exactly remember their motivations or why they do what they do or exactly how they fight even. So that's where things get a little But they, much like the Tyranids, they would attack worlds, they would consume biomass, they are pretty dangerous. The only difference is they're bipedal, if I recall correctly from the artwork and stuff like that.
Yeah, they are.
They're bipedal, they're pretty brutal, and their biological components could actually defend against lightsaber slashes.
They kind of remind me of a cross between a Dark Eldar and a Chains.
Yeah, so the Yuuzhan Vong were... The theory, I don't know if it was ever proven, was that Palpatine was preparing for them because they were far worse than anything else. They were basically the all-consuming threat that was far greater than any other. The Sith Empire was nothing compared to them in terms of evil or danger. That's the idea behind them. And they were pretty cool, not gonna lie. I would say they're not like a ripoff of like Tyranids, or I'd say the only ripoff part is the idea of like the overarching threat and like the
Right.
biological horror. Other than that, they're pretty unique in what they represent from the graphic novel / comics. So there was I can't remember how the story ended with them or any of those details, so don't ask me, but that's like the concept is it would come down to basically they were the biological evil versus the technological humans / aliens of the Star Wars universe that we do know. And that the final fight would be between us and them. And even our greatest fighters amongst the Sith or the Jedi were not a true match for them on average, even with Force powers. So it would be an uphill battle at best. God, that jumped me. Nathan, thank you for the super chat, man. Thank you.
I will say that knowing what I know about the Warhammer universe and what little I know about the Star Wars universe, I would still give it to Warhammer because the Stardays are a thing. And I think Stardays, if not being able to go toe to toe, would have a clear physical advantage over them.
In terms of how they would fit into the universe, I'd say that from what I remember of them and how they were implied to be, I would say that they're not as bad as the Tyranids or the Zerg even in terms of concept.
Yeah.
But they were very, very powerful, very strong, and not easily killed. So I'd say out of any of the armies we've discussed so far, they would be a notable threat. But I'd say orcs or Tyranids, or if those factions by themselves could easily hold out against the Yuzhang Vong and not lose. It would probably be a battle of an eternal attrition. Even then, like I just think they'd be considered one of the lesser factions if they were a faction of themselves.
Real quick, Jackson said, "How about orcs versus Terrans? That would be the shortest orc walk."
Orcs would crush the Terran Dominion
easily.
So Jacob Jones says they were resistant to the Force. I do remember that, as they were stripped from the Force and totally lacking a presence in the Force. So would they be resistant to psychic powers? No. I would say no, because the psychic powers, as described and as shown in what consistency you choose of the 40k universe, I'd say that chaos corruption is more prevalent or present than the Force would be in 40k. So I'd say that coming down to it, these creatures, if they weren't creatures of chaos in and of themselves, you could argue that the Yuzhang Vong would be maybe a bit of Nurgle combined with Tzeentch a little bit, bits and pieces here.
Take a couple of Tzeentch because those two are polar opposites.
Yeah, but if they weren't of chaos, they would certainly lean towards chaos.
I would say the reason I would argue, because the way the warp works and the way the Force work are two entirely different things. A Psyker using war powers is literally bending reality to their will. So let's just say hypothetically they want to crush someone like a car crusher. That's them physically doing it in reality. Whereas the Force, they're having the Force, which is all around us, do it. So
it's all around us. It binds us and brings the universe together.
I think I vomited in my mouth a little when you said that.
Oh, come on.
So I think that would be the main difference, is those being the two different sources, because with the Force, it actually being the Force doing it, whereas the warp, it's actually warping reality.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I'd say, to summarize my thoughts on the Yuzhang Vong in the 40k universe, they'd be a lesser faction. They'd be a minor faction at best. At worst, they'd probably get crushed by another one at some point.
Crushed by the warp.
Yeah, they'd have I'd say that they'd probably be more of a threat than the Terran Dominion for sure, but there's...
Boy, who would these get?
But yeah, compared to threats like the like any of the Xenos factions I can think of, they're not in the 40k universe. They'd be like a reprieve from one of those. So
yeah,
in my
maybe
opinion.
a short story of like, we almost died, but it wasn't as bad as last time.
Yeah, Jacob Jones says, I don't think they'd get stomped. Well, that's not this full comment, but that's like the important. He'd say, I'd say, I'd agree having the Vong being line something of many factions, but I don't think they'd get stomped. Again, it would depend on who they're up against. If they're up against the Orcs, I would argue they'd get stomped. If they're because they're both
the Black Templar, I'd argue they'd get stomped.
If they're up against most of the Tyranids, that's a squash match.
Black Templar are Orcs.
Now, if they're up against an Imperial Guard regiment, I would actually say the Yuzhang Vong might win that. Even if it was Death Corps. Like, they were significantly strong. So I'd say...
It would depend on who's attacking and which regiment, I think. I think that's more of a by circumstance thing.
It would be dependent, and I'd have to double check my facts about the Yuzhang Vong, but from what I remember, I'd say that they have a chance against Imperial Guard regiments, but anything more powerful than that in the 40k universe is a squash match. Yeah. Maybe the Tau would suck against them because of their energy tech.
Tau suck against everyone, though, so that's not really.
But yeah, everyone I could think of against Yuzhang Vong, like any of the Chaos Gods and their demons, no.
Hey, Yuzhang Vong, here's Death Guard.
Yeah,
that would be a cool fight.
It's an interesting idea, though. I'd have to maybe I might be remembering some things wrong. Maybe they were a lot more dangerous than I'm thinking. And I know they were definitely the penultimate threat of Star Wars in the EU. They were like the big guy. They were like the end. But even that thrown into 40k, like I'd be like, they wouldn't be the end in 40k. So it's a bit of a crapshoot, really, when it comes to talking about that. We do have to end the stream, guys. Unfortunately, we went over by about a minute, and so we're gonna have to end it here. But if you guys still have lingering questions, still want to throw out more like verses here, we can carry this over to the next podcast next week.
If anyone wants to specifically leave questions, I'll leave a link to my Discord, or you can join Asmongon's Discord. But I'll leave a link to mine as well, so that if you have specific questions.
Right. I actually have a chat in one of my categories called questions. Just say for GT podcast and then leave the question, and we'll pick those up next stream.
Yeah, absolutely. Do that, and we'll read through them, and we'll pick out the best ones, and we'll answer.
Yep. So, but we gotta end it here. I gotta take my dog out. And Ludus has got your no, that's in another hour though.
Another hour and a half.
Well, we still got some stuff we got to do, and it was nice coming back to the podcast and doing this again. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man. I loved it. Yeah. I had a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. But otherwise, we're going to have to end it here. Sorry, guys. If you have any last things you want to say or anything, can't read it, got to go. So, love you guys. Thank you for joining the Geeky Theoreticus podcast. I've been Asbegun.
And I've been Ludus Infinio.
And we'll see you guys next time. Make sure to check out both our channels, and have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.